If the 911 operator had not turned her chair at that exact second, Emily's whisper might have vanished into the static, and the story would have ended right there. Instead, Sarah froze, headset pressing tight against her ear as a child's voice seeped through the line, thin and shaking. "Please, don't hang up," the girl breathed. "Something inside my belly keeps kicking. I think it wants to get out." "Frank," Sarah thought for half a heartbeat. Then she heard it. A small sob, a sharp inhale like someone trying not to scream, and the hollow echo of a tiled room. No television, no adults arguing, no traffic hum. Just a 7-year-old alone. "What's your name?" Sarah asked, forcing her hands to stop trembling over the keyboard. "Emily," came the reply. "I'm in the bathroom by the road. It's cold. I can't stand up anymore." In Sarah's mind, a picture formed with terrifying clarity. A tiny blonde girl in a simple pink dress, knees pulled to her chest on a dirty floor, green eyes glossy with tears while something thumped under her ribs. Outside, a rural rest stop slept under a curtain of morning mist, trucks rumbling past without noticing the hidden nightmare behind a cracked blue sign. Dispatch codes fired across Sarah's screen. Officer Jason Miller grabbed his radio. Shadow, the station's German shepherd, jolted to his feet as if someone had flipped a switch inside his chest, claws skidding on linoleum while sirens roared to life. Sarah leaned closer to the microphone. "Emily, listen to me. Whatever is happening, we are coming. Do not move. Do not open the door for anyone else. Because what waited inside that tiny body was nothing any of them were prepared to see. Stay with this story, because the truth will twist everything you know." Emily almost ended the call before anyone even heard her. The ringing in her ear bounced around the empty restroom, too loud against the thin metal stall and the chipped white tiles behind her. She sat on the cold floor with her knees pulled under her pink dress, bare toes curling against the grout lines like she might dig into the ground. Emily was 7. Her blonde hair clung to her damp forehead. Her green eyes stung from holding back tears, and the phone shook in her small hand. Then, deep under her belly button, something moved again. Slow, heavy, a deliberate pressure dragging along the inside of her skin. Pain flared through her tiny body, bright and sharp, stealing her breath so completely that her thumb slid away from the red end button. Instead of hanging up, she tightened her grip until her knuckles turned white. The line clicked, and a woman's voice came through, calm and practiced. 911, what's your emergency?" she asked, almost sounding bored. Emily's throat felt too tight for words, but the thing inside her shifted again, like a foot pressing from the wrong side of her skin. She dragged in a shaky breath. "Please," she whispered. "Please help. Something's moving inside me." Across town in the dispatch center, Sarah Reed reached for her coffee without really thinking, eyes flicking to the glowing call display. Unknown number. Early morning. Tiny voice. Her brain automatically placed it next to the dozens of prank calls she had already handled in her career. Kids pretending to be hurt, teenagers using apps to fake crying, and bored people seeing how far they could push the system. For one heartbeat, this sounded like it belonged to that same pile of hoaxes and cruel jokes. Then she heard a sound that didn't fit at all. A tiny, broken sob, strangled halfway, followed by the hollow echo of a public bathroom and the buzz of a tired fluorescent light. Sarah's fingers froze around the coffee cup, then slowly set it aside. She leaned closer to her microphone. "What did you say is wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, her tone already softer than before. "My belly," Emily breathed. "Something's in my belly. It keeps moving. It keeps kicking." "I don't know what it is." Sarah straightened in her chair, the last traces of boredom burning off like mist in sunlight. The voice sounded 7, maybe 8 at most, and nothing in it felt like an act. She pushed the coffee away and woke the mapping software with 2 quick keystrokes. "Okay, Emily," she said carefully. "You did the right thing by calling me. I know you're scared, but you're not alone right now. I need you to tell me where you are. Are you at home, at a store, or somewhere on the road?" Inside the stall, Emily wedged the phone between her ear and shoulder so she could use both hands. Her fingers trembled as she turned the metal lock. The scrape sounded huge in the cramped space. She pushed the door a few inches and a slice of cold air slid across the floor, wrapping around her bare ankles. On her knees, she shuffled forward until she could peek past the doorway toward the parking lot outside. Mist pressed against the narrow windows, turning everything beyond them into a gray blur. "I see a blue sign," she murmured. "It's cracked. There's a picture of a tree and a car, and there are numbers. 2 and 3. I think it says 23. Outside that cracked sign, the rural rest stop sat half hidden in fog, a forgotten pocket of concrete and asphalt along the highway. A couple of trucks idled near the far fence, orange marker lights glowing weakly through the haze, while a single sedan leaned crooked beside an overflowing trash can. Pine trees and scrub brush ringed the lot, their dark shapes softened by the mist, and water dripped from the restroom roof in slow, patient taps. The sky above everything was a dull sheet of cloud. The sun still trapped somewhere behind it, giving the morning a flat, cold light. Sarah zoomed in on her screen until the tiny icon labeled Rest Area, Exit 23, glowed back at her. "You're doing really well, Emily," she said. "I know exactly where you are now. I'm sending police officers to you right this second. I want you to go back into the stall, lock the door, and sit on the floor again. Can you do that for me?" Emily backed up, shut the door, and slid the lock into place with a click that seemed to echo off every surface. She sank down until she was curled small again, phone against her ear, free arm wrapped around her middle. As soon as she bent forward, something inside her rolled slowly from one side to the other, like a heel testing the strength of a wall. She pressed her palm flat over the front of her dress. "It hurts," she whispered. "It feels like something alive, like it wants out." Sarah opened a second channel on her console without taking her eyes off the blinking dot that marked the rest stop. "Unit 12. This is dispatch," she said, her voice turning crisp. "Possible juvenile medical emergency at Exit 23 Rest Area. The caller is a 7-year-old female named Emily, reporting something, quote, kicking inside her abdomen. She believes she's alone in the restroom. Unknown adult last seen with her stepfather currently unaccounted for. Respond code 3. In the station garage, Officer Jason Miller set his unfinished coffee on the hood of his cruiser and listened to the call repeat through the radio. At his feet, a large German shepherd lifted his head, ears pricked the moment Jason's posture changed. Shadow had spent years learning the difference between routine and danger, and every line of his handler's body said this was the second kind. "Copy. Dispatch," Jason said as he slid behind the wheel. "Unit 12 and K9 Shadow en route." The engine roared to life, and red and blue light splashed against the damp concrete walls as the cruiser shot out of the lot and onto the highway. The siren carved a jagged line through the quiet morning, sending flocks of birds lifting from the trees as the car gained speed. The road ahead was almost empty, a dark ribbon of asphalt slicing between frost-silvered fields and low banks of fog. In the back seat, Shadow braced himself. Muscles coiled, nose twitching at the faint draft sneaking in around the window sill. He couldn't smell the child yet, but he could feel the urgency in the air, in Jason's tight grip on the wheel, and in the clipped updates from dispatch. Back at the console, Sarah kept her voice calm as Emily's fragile breathing crackled in her ear, each little gasp a reminder that this was not a story or a prank. "You're doing so well," she told the girl. "I'm not hanging up. In a few minutes you'll hear an officer calling your name, and you'll hear a dog with him named Shadow. He is coming to you. Stay with us. What Emily reveals next will shock you." Sarah Reed had spent 15 years behind the dispatch desk, long enough to recognize the texture of real fear through static. But the voice on the line that morning wasn't the kind that came from adults who had seen too much. It was the trembling, breathless kind that belonged to someone still learning how to spell. A child's voice. "My belly. It's moving again," Emily whispered. "I think something's inside me." Sarah pressed her palm over her mouth for half a second before she spoke, steadying her breath. Her tone softened into that practiced calm every good dispatcher carried like armor. "You're being very brave, Emily. I need you to tell me where you are, sweetheart." I'm at the bathroom," Emily stammered. "The one by the road with the broken light. It's cold. I don't know what's happening." Her words faded under a crackle of silence. Sarah pictured the tiny girl, 7 years old, blonde hair tangled around her face, green eyes wide and terrified, pink dress smudged from kneeling on dirty tiles. She imagined the dull flicker of a dying fluorescent bulb and mist outside pressing against a fogged window. She typed fast, flagging the call as urgent medical, possible child in danger, unknown cause. Then she switched lines. "Unit 12, respond to the rest. Stop, exit 23 off Highway 41. Possible juvenile emergency. The caller, 7 years old, reports severe abdominal distress. Alone. No guardian on scene." Down in the station's garage, Officer Jason Miller's phone buzzed on his belt before the radio even finished the sentence. He was in his early 30s, with eyes trained to spot trouble before most people smelt it. His hand automatically found the K9 leash hanging on the wall. "Come on, Shadow," he said. The German shepherd bounded out from under the table, tail stiff, chest rising with quick anticipation. Jason slipped the collar into place and jogged toward the cruiser. "Copy that, dispatch," he said into his mic. Officer Miller and K9 Shadow en route. The garage door rolled upward, flooding the space with a haze of white morning light and exhaust. Jason's breath puffed clouds as he climbed into the driver's seat, turning on the siren that shattered the quiet block outside. Back at the call center, Sarah stayed with Emily. She could hear the girl's uneven breaths and the faint slap of her hand against her belly each time she said it moved. "Emily, listen to me. There's an officer on the way and he's bringing a very smart dog. His name is Shadow. He helps find people who need help. Can you stay on the phone with me until he arrives?" "Okay," Emily whispered. "But it hurts. It's like something is kicking. Can you tell me when it started? Since yesterday night, he said I should wait." "Who said that?" Emily didn't answer, only whimpered and curled tighter. Sarah swallowed hard. The line crackled with static, but underneath it she could hear something rhythmic. The soft ticking of a fluorescent bulb, the distant hum of traffic on the highway, and the shallow, fragile sound of a little girl's heartbeat through the silence. Sarah opened the map again. The rest stops at 20 miles north, halfway between two towns no one ever talked about except to complain about the cold. A gas station stood on one side of the lot. A narrow trail of pine trees formed a wall behind the bathroom building. No cameras, no attendants until after sunrise. "Emily, I need you to look at the door. Is it locked?" "Yes." "Good. Keep it that way. And Emily, can you hear me?" "Yes." "I want you to breathe with me. In and out, okay? We're getting closer every second." Outside, Jason's cruiser sliced through the fog. The highway was nearly empty, just gray lanes stretching through fields where frost glittered under the first weak light of dawn. Shadow stood tall in the passenger seat, nose twitching at every scent that seeped through the vent. The faint metallic tang of cold air, oil, and something else he couldn't yet name. "Dispatch, ETA 6 minutes, Jason reported. "Copy, 12, Sarah replied. "Caller stable, but distressed. Says she's cold and alone. Keep the line open." Jason flicked on his headlights, scanning the fog for movement. He'd seen hundreds of calls like this turn out ugly. Runaways, injuries, sometimes worse. But something in Sarah's voice made this one different. He tightened his grip on the wheel. "Hang on, kid," he muttered. At the rest stop, the mist had thickened into a low, white curtain. The bathroom lights flickered through it like a heartbeat, weak and irregular. The only sounds were the slow hiss of wind sliding across asphalt and the muffled rumble of engines from trucks parked in the distance. Inside, Emily tried to mimic Sarah's breathing, but each inhale made the pressure in her stomach stretch wider, heavier. She wanted her mother, but she couldn't remember where her mother had gone. She wanted to cry, but she was too scared that if she did, whatever was inside her might move again. She held the phone close. "Is the dog nice?" "The nicest," Sarah said. "He's big, but he knows when someone's afraid, he'll find you first." Emily let out a small sound that was half a sob, half a laugh. "Okay." Sarah smiled, though no one could see it. She had spent years learning to speak softly when everything inside her wanted to scream. Her job was never to panic. Her job was to bridge the distance between fear and help. She checked the clock. 4 minutes since the call started. 4 minutes of holding a child's world together through a phone line. "Emily, what color is your dress?" "Pink. My mom said it makes me look like a flower." "That's beautiful," Sarah said. "I bet Shadow's going to think so too." Jason's radio crackled again. "Approaching exit 23, he confirmed. His headlights cut through the fog as the cruiser turned off the highway, tires crunching over gravel. The rest stop came into view. A squat brick building with one flickering bulb above the bathroom door. 2 trucks asleep at the far edge, and nothing else but mist and silence. "Copy. Dispatch," he said. "Visual confirmed. Starting approach. 10-4. The child is inside the women's restroom, locked stall. She's still on the line with me. Proceed with caution." Jason parked the cruiser near the curb and cut the siren. The sudden quiet pressed heavy. He opened the door, and the cold hit like a slap. Shadow jumped out, landing lightly on his paws, nose already testing the air. The dog's ears shifted forward, tail straight like a flag. Jason unclipped the flashlight from his belt and aimed it toward the building. "Let's go find her, boy." Sarah's voice drifted through the radio, steady as ever. "She can probably hear your car, Jason. Keep your voice calm when you call her name." He nodded, even though she couldn't see him, and started across the wet pavement. Shadow's claws clicked softly beside him. Back in the dispatch center, Sarah watched the tracker pulse on her screen, Jason's signal moving closer to the dot labeled Emily. She could hear the siren fading on the call line and Emily's tiny gasp when she realized someone was near. "They're here, right?" the girl asked, voice trembling. "Yes, sweetheart. They're right outside." "Can you hear the dog's collar jingling?" "Yes." "That's Shadow. You're safe now." Sarah exhaled slowly, tension slipping from her shoulders. She could almost see it. The mist rolling aside, the officer crouching near the restroom door, the loyal German shepherd standing guard, and the tiny child waiting for rescue she didn't fully understand. The monitors glowed around her, endless streams of blinking numbers and words, But none of them mattered except that one steady signal approaching the girl. As Jason and Shadow reached the bathroom entrance, Sarah's voice came through his earpiece one last time before he stepped inside. "Before we continue," she said quietly to everyone listening across the airwaves, "hit like and subscribe to follow this unbelievable rescue story." And with that, the door creaked open, and the real nightmare began. Jason's cruiser rolled to a stop beside the cracked curb, headlights slicing through the fog like thin blades. The engine idled low and steady, its vibration matched only by the quiet growl rising from Shadow's throat. The German shepherd's nose pressed against the passenger window, fogging the glass as he inhaled. Something about this place made his fur bristle from neck to tail. Jason turned off the siren, leaving the world wrapped in a blanket of cold silence. The rest stop looked forgotten. Just two flickering bulbs above the bathroom doors, a vending machine buzzing weakly near the wall, and the sharp smell of wet asphalt and pine. A single crow croaked from the tree line. Then even that sound died. Jason opened the door. The chill cut through his uniform and Shadow leapt out before he gave the command, landing hard on the pavement, nostrils flaring. He started pacing tight circles, tail stiff, ears twitching at faint noises beyond human reach. Jason crouched beside him, placing a steady hand on his collar. "Easy, boy," he murmured. "Let's see what's got you worked up." Shadow's only answer was another low growl, throat vibrating like a motor. They advanced toward the restroom building. Each step crunched against scattered gravel. The air carried a mix of rust, moisture, and something metallic, sharp, faint, and wrong. Jason's flashlight cut through the mist and swept across the restroom door. It hung slightly open, just an inch, swaying with the wind. A chill of instinct crawled up his neck. He pushed it gently. The hinges squealed. Light flickered once overhead and steadied into a pale, trembling glow. The scent of bleach mixed with something sour, fear, sweat, old water. Shadow's hackles rose. He sniffed the tile floor, pawing forward, then stopped and let out a sound halfway between a whine and a warning bark. "Emily?" Jason called softly. His voice echoed back at him. A tiny gasp came from inside one of the stalls. Then silence. Jason lowered his flashlight beam toward the floor, where the edge of a small pink dress peeked beneath the door. He exhaled carefully, heart pounding. "It's okay, Emily." "My name's Jason. I'm a police officer. The lady you talked to on the phone, Sarah, she sent me. I brought my dog, Shadow. He's a good one. He's here to keep you safe." The stall lock rattled. A voice, faint and trembling, answered. "It hurts. Please don't be mad. It keeps moving." Jason's throat tightened. "I'm not mad, sweetheart. I just need to see you, okay? Can you unlock the door?" No answer. Only breathing. Shallow, uneven. Jason hesitated, then signaled Shadow to stay. He crouched low, peering under the gap. The beam of light found her. Emily sat curled against the corner, knees to her chest, bare feet pressed against the cold tile. Her small fingers gripped her stomach as if trying to hold something still beneath her skin. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks streaked with dried tears, and her green eyes glassy with exhaustion. Jason spoke softly, the way he would to his niece after a nightmare. "You did the right thing calling us. You're very brave." Emily looked toward the light, blinking. "You heard it too? The thing?" Jason frowned. "What thing, honey?" She pointed weakly at her stomach. "It moves, it pushes, like a baby, but I'm not a mommy." Jason's chest tightened. He reached over the stall door but stopped before touching it. "I'm going to open this now, okay? I won't hurt you." The lock clicked. Slowly, he pulled the door open. The light hit her fully, and his breath caught. Her belly bulged unnaturally for her size, the skin taut, trembling in faint pulses. Every few seconds, a twitch moved beneath the fabric of her dress. Small, circular, mechanical, and not organic. Shadow stepped forward, nose lowering, teeth bared slightly. Not at Emily, but at something invisible. He growled deep and steady, never taking his eyes off her abdomen. The sound made Emily flinch. "Hey," Jason whispered, placing a calming hand on the dog's neck. "He's just trying to help. He smells things better than I can. Shadow thinks something's wrong, and I do too. We'll figure it out, okay?" Tears spilt down her cheeks. "I didn't do anything bad. He said it would stop if I stayed quiet." Jason's stomach twisted. "Who said that?" She shook her head violently. "He said I can't say his name. He said they'd come back if I told." Jason looked over his shoulder toward the open door. The mist outside pressed close, almost alive. He clicked his radio once, keeping his voice steady. "Dispatch, I've got eyes on the child. She's responsive but in distress. Requesting immediate medical assistance." "Copy that, 12. Sarah's voice answered, calm but tight. "Units en route, hold position, keep her talking." Jason turned back. "Emily, you're safe now. Nobody's coming back here to hurt you. We're going to take you to someone who can help." Her hand trembled as she reached toward Shadow. The dog moved closer, lowering himself until his head rested near her knee. She touched his fur like she was testing if he was real. His growling stopped, replaced by a low, reassuring whine. For the first time since the call started, Emily let out a weak laugh, with one hiccup between sobs. "He's warm," she whispered. "He doesn't scare me." Jason nodded. "That's good. He doesn't scare the people he likes. And he likes you." The fluorescent light flickered again. For a heartbeat, everything flashed pale and colorless. Emily's white skin, the gray tiles, and Jason's shadow stretching long behind him. Then a faint noise broke the quiet. A small rhythmic clicking sound. Not from the light, not from the radio, from Emily. Jason's gaze dropped to her belly. The sound synced with the strange movements under her dress. Shadow's ears flattened. His growl returned, sharper, chest rumbling like a warning. Jason leaned closer. "Emily, has anyone put anything on you? Any toys, any belts, or metal things?" She shook her head. He said it was a game. He said it would buzz, and then I'd get candy." Jason felt the blood drain from his face. Whatever this was, it wasn't sickness. It was deliberate. He forced himself to smile for her sake, even as his pulse thundered. "Okay, Emily, you're doing great. We're going to get that thing off you very soon." Outside, faint sirens echoed through the fog, growing louder by the second. Relief mixed with dread in Jason's chest. Shadow suddenly barked, sharp, loud, once, then lunged toward the doorway, hackles raised. Jason spun the light toward the entrance, but the fog swallowed everything. Just beyond it, something metal clattered, then silence again. "Stay here," Jason said quickly, pushing to his feet. "Shadow, with me." The dog obeyed instantly, positioning at his left side, nose high, tail stiff as iron. Jason scanned the room once more, then leaned toward his radio. "Dispatch. Possible movement outside the restroom. Keep backup on high alert." "Copy that, 12, came Sarah's steady reply. He turned back toward Emily, who sat frozen, arms around herself. "Don't move from here, okay? You're safe with Shadow watching." She nodded faintly. "You'll come back." "Always," he promised, the words heavier than they sounded. He stepped into the mist, flashlight slicing the dark air. Shadow's deep growl rolled beside him, low and protective. Inside, Emily listened to the distant sirens approaching and pressed her hands against her belly. The movement had stopped for now. The silence almost felt worse. She looked toward the door, eyes wide. "Please, hurry," she whispered, though no one could hear. Outside, the world held its breath. The wind hissed through pine branches, carrying faint echoes of sirens and one voice on the radio, Sarah's, steady and human amid all the fear. "Comment below where you're watching from," she would have said if this were a story told later. "We want to know how far this story reaches." For now, it reached only here, an isolated rest stop swallowed by fog, a trembling child clutching her stomach, and a police officer standing guard over a mystery that hadn't even begun to reveal its true shape. Shadow's low growl rumbled again, deeper this time, a vibration that Jason felt through the leash. The German shepherd's head snapped toward Emily, nose twitching furiously as he paced around her, hackles raised. Jason frowned, one hand tightening on the lead. "Easy," he whispered. But Shadow wouldn't settle. His nostrils flared, and he barked once, sharp, directed not at the girl, but at her midsection. The sound bounced off the tiled walls like a shot. Emily flinched and covered her stomach with both hands. Jason crouched, shining his flashlight toward her. "It's okay, sweetheart. He's not angry. He's just telling me something's not right." He moved slowly, careful not to scare her. The beam of light slid across her small form. Pink dress wrinkled, smudged with dirt, knees scraped. Then it caught on the strange shape beneath the thin fabric. It wasn't swelling the way a stomach should. It was angular in places and uneven, and every few seconds a faint movement rippled beneath it. Too rhythmic, too deliberate. Jason blinked, thinking it might be a trick of the light. But then came the sound. Tick, 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 faint but steady, like a watch buried under layers of cloth. He leaned closer, hearing the pattern grow clearer, mechanical, not organic. "Sarah," he said into his radio, his voice tight. "Confirm ETA on medical. We've got a possible foreign object, non-biological. The child reports movement." Audible ticking confirmed. Static crackled. Then Sarah's calm voice replied, "Copy, 12. EMS 4 minutes out. Proceed with caution." Jason swallowed, his eyes flicking to Shadow. The dog had stopped moving, muscles stiff, nose fixed on Emily. He let out a short huff, tail rigid. Jason trusted that instinct more than any scanner. Something unnatural was here. Emily looked up at him, trembling. "It's getting faster," she whispered. Jason steadied his flashlight. The outline shifted again. Tiny pulses under the fabric, like gears turning beneath a curtain. Sweat rolled down his temple. "Emily, listen to me. We're going to help you, but I need to know. Did someone give you anything? A toy? A belt? Something that buzzes or moves?" She hesitated. Her lips trembled. "He said it was a game," she murmured. "He said if I wore it, I'd be special." Jason's pulse jumped. "Who said that?" "Mr. Carter," she whispered, voice breaking. "He said not to tell. He said it would make me better if I was good." Jason froze. The name hit like ice. He'd seen that name before. Carter, local mechanic, priors for child neglect, complaints sealed under insufficient evidence. He looked again at the bulge beneath Emily's dress, and his stomach turned. Shadow barked again, stepping between Jason and the girl, nose nearly touching her knees. His growl deepened, guttural, defensive. The ticking grew louder in Jason's ears, syncing with his racing heartbeat. He moved his light slowly closer. The shape under the cloth was clearer now. Rectangular lines, wires faintly visible through thin fabric, pulsing faintly with each tick. "Is this real?" he muttered. "Or am I losing it?" "Jason?" Sarah's voice cut in again, sharper. "Say again?" "Possible device," he said, forcing the words out evenly. "Unknown mechanism attached to or inside clothing. The child says the stepfather installed it, requesting EOD support immediately." "Copy," Sarah answered, her tone now stripped of calm. "All units diverting. Hold the perimeter." Emily started to cry, small hands clutching her stomach. "Please, make it stop. I didn't want it." Jason holstered his flashlight and knelt closer. "You did nothing wrong, Emily. You hear me? Nothing. Whatever he told you, that was a lie." Shadow circled again, growling low but controlled, his body forming a barrier between Emily and the door. Every instinct in the animal screamed danger. His nose darted toward the source of the ticking. Then back to Jason as if urging him to hurry. Jason gently reached out, fingers trembling just above the cloth. He could feel faint vibrations through the air, like something humming beneath. He pulled back instantly. "Okay," he said softly. "We're not touching that. Paramedics will be here any second." Emily's breathing quickened. "He said if someone found out, it would hurt me. He said the machine was part of me now." Jason's jaw tightened. "No, Emily, he's not here anymore. He can't hurt you. Do you understand? You're safe." The ticking shifted again, faster and irregular. Jason's heart thudded. He turned his radio volume down so the girl wouldn't hear the stress in dispatch's updates. Outside, the mist thickened. Faint red lights flickered through it. The ambulance weaving through the empty highway, siren distant but rising. Inside, every second stretched thin. Jason's breath fogged in the cold, but his palms were slick with sweat. He scanned the floor. No wires, no external devices. Whatever this was, it had been hidden deliberately. The thought of someone strapping anything mechanical to a child made his stomach twist with rage. Shadow suddenly lunged toward the wall, barking furiously. Jason swung his light around. A faint outline of a handprint smeared the tile near the sink. Grime, oil, too large to be Emily's. He followed it up the wall to where a scrap of fabric hung on a sharp edge. A torn piece of denim jacket, dark with grease. Jason pulled a small evidence bag from his pocket and sealed it quickly. Mr. Carter's scent would be all over it. Shadow whined, circling the bathroom again, restless. Jason crouched beside Emily once more. "You're doing great, kiddo. The doctors are almost here. I just need you to stay still." Her eyes were unfocused now, glazed with fear. "He said it would make me quiet forever if I told." Jason clenched his jaw. "That man doesn't control you anymore. You called us. That makes you the bravest kid I've ever met." The ticking pulsed again, 3 times, then stopped completely. For one dreadful moment, neither of them moved. Even Shadow froze. Jason's breath caught. Then a faint whirring started, almost imperceptible. He leaned closer, trying to locate the sound. It wasn't inside her. It was behind her. The flashlight beam slid down the wall, catching a vent cover screwed loosely into place. Dust trembled with each mechanical click. "Shadow," Jason whispered. The dog crept forward, nose pressed to the vent. He barked twice, loud and sharp. Jason pried the cover loose with his multi-tool. Inside, wedged between old wiring, was a small black box with blinking red lights and a tangle of thin cords running out toward the floor, disappearing into the tiles beneath Emily. "Jesus," he muttered. He wired the stall. He radioed again. Dispatch confirming secondary device, mechanical, not biological, possible remote trigger. Get EOD techs here now. Sarah's voice came, calm but clipped. Copy, 12. Bomb squad inbound. Evac perimeter initiated. Keep the child calm. Units approaching in 2 minutes. Jason looked at Emily. We're getting you out of here, okay? Slowly. And I need you to keep looking at me, not the floor. She nodded weakly. Shadow positioned himself at her side, body pressed close, steadying her with his warmth. The girl's tiny hand gripped the fur at his neck, anchoring herself as Jason lifted her carefully. As they stepped into the hall, the mist outside glowed red from approaching emergency lights. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he moved slowly, measured, 1 step at a time. Behind them, the ticking resumed, faint but relentless. Jason turned once, eyes narrowing at the vent. "You think this was a trick, Sarah?" he said softly into his mic. "Because it doesn't feel like one. This feels planned." Sarah's reply came through the static. Then whoever planned it just made a mistake leaving her alive. Jason looked down at Emily, her face pressed into Shadow's fur, eyes closed, trembling. He tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Hang on, kid," he said quietly. "We've got you now." Outside, the first paramedic team rushed through the fog, shouting orders, lights flashing. The rest stop-pulsed with motion. Officers setting tape, technicians unpacking gear, and radios buzzing with urgency. But Jason didn't move until Emily was safe inside the ambulance. Shadow, sitting at his heel, eyes locked on the mist beyond the lot, as if expecting something, or someone, to appear. Because deep down, both man and dog knew this was no accident. Someone had turned a child into bait, and the game was far from over. Red and blue lights painted the fog as the ambulance pulled up, sirens dying to a low whine. Jason stepped back, guiding Emily carefully into the beam of the headlights. The little girl trembled so violently he could feel it through his gloves. Her breath came in shallow bursts, and every few seconds her abdomen twitched beneath the thin hospital blanket he'd wrapped around her. The medic jumped down before the back doors fully opened. "Paramedic Laura Diaz," she said briskly, already gloved, eyes scanning Emily from head to toe. She was young, mid-20s, but her movements carried a calm, practiced rhythm that filled the space with control. "Vitals?" she asked. "Stable for now," Jason replied. "But there's something under her dress, not natural. We've got mechanical ticking. She says her stepfather put it there." Laura nodded once, no hesitation. "We'll confirm. Keep her still." She knelt beside Emily. Flashlight beam sliding across the pale skin stretched tight over an unnatural bulge. Her brow creased. "That's not organic tissue," she murmured. "Hold position." Shadow growled softly, tail low but rigid. His body pressed close to Emily's legs. His instincts warred between aggression and protection, every sense alive to the metallic scent that leaked from her dress. The rhythmic clicking pulsed louder now, echoing through the still morning. Each tick seemed to vibrate inside the walls. Laura reached into her kit and withdrew a portable scanner, sleek and palm-sized. "This will feel cold," she told Emily gently. "I'm just going to see what's inside, okay?" Emily's voice was almost gone. "Please don't touch it too long. It doesn't like when people do." Jason's breath caught, but Laura didn't flinch. The scanner hummed as it passed over the child's stomach, casting faint blue light over the fabric. Lines formed on the device's screen, irregular, geometric, hard-edged shapes that no human anatomy could produce. "What the—" Jason began. Laura silenced him with a look. "Non-biological signatures, multiple components. Looks like a composite housing with micromechanical movement." She paused, the smallest flicker of unease crossing her features. This isn't something a child could swallow. The clicking intensified. Emily whimpered and curled forward, clutching Shadow's fur with both hands. The dog barked once, a sharp warning that made Laura's equipment tremble in her grip. Jason placed his hand on the dog's harness. "Easy, Shadow. She's helping." But Shadow's gaze stayed fixed on the pulsing shape beneath the dress, eyes glowing with alert fear. He whined, pushed closer to Emily's side, then looked at Jason as if begging him to act faster. Laura's scanner gave a soft alarm tone. "There's movement," she said quietly. "Internal gear shift. Something is powering up or heating." She turned her wrist so the small screen faced Jason. Within the blurry outline, gears rotated slowly, light flickering through cracks. Jason's mind raced. Could it be timed? Detonator? Tracking device? "Unknown," Laura answered, her calm voice hiding the edge of tension. "We need to stabilize her and isolate whatever that is." Emily sobbed, gripping Shadow tighter. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." Jason knelt in front of her, voice low and steady. "You're doing perfect, Emily. Look at me. Keep your eyes right here. No one's going to let anything happen to you." Her lips quivered. "He said it keeps him close even when he's far away. He said if I take it off, he won't find me again." Jason exchanged a glance with Laura. "Mr. Carter," he muttered. "The stepfather." Laura nodded grimly. "Then this isn't random. He's monitoring or controlling her somehow." She checked the scanner again. The beeping quickened. "Jason, I'm detecting a wireless signature. Weak, but active." Jason stood abruptly and grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is 12. We have a confirmed electronic device implanted or attached. Possible signal transmission. Lock down all frequencies and request immediate tech support." Sarah's voice responded through the static, tight but composed. "Copy, 12. Signal trace initiated. Keep distance until verified safe." Laura began prepping an IV, her movements efficient, voice still soft for Emily's sake. "You're doing amazing, honey. Deep breaths for me. In, out, just like that." Emily tried to obey, but couldn't stop shaking. The clicking grew louder, layered with a faint whirring beneath it. Jason could feel it through the floor tiles. Shadow barked again, suddenly and sharply, lunging between the medic and the girl, teeth flashing but not touching. "Shadow, down!" Jason commanded. The dog hesitated, muscles trembling, then slowly obeyed, though his eyes never left the movement under Emily's blanket. Laura swallowed hard. "Whatever it is, it's responding to proximity. It accelerated when I got close." Jason exhaled through his teeth. "So it senses electromagnetic fields?" "Or heartbeat vibrations," she said. "We don't know how primitive or advanced this is." Emily whimpered again, her voice small and broken. "It's hot now." Laura stepped back a few feet and adjusted her tone. "Okay, everyone, slow down. We're not touching her again until EOD confirms clearance." She radioed her team outside for containment tools. Jason crouched beside Shadow, keeping his hand on the dog's shoulder. "She trusts you," he said quietly. "Keep her calm." Shadow turned his head toward Emily and pressed his nose to her wrist. She relaxed fractionally, eyes half closing as she leaned into his warmth. Her tiny fingers twitched through his fur, each breath syncing with his steady panting. Jason felt the shift in the air, a fragile pocket of calm inside chaos. The sirens outside faded as backup units cordoned the lot. The only sounds left were the clock-like ticks, the scanner's faint hum, and the whisper of fog moving through the doorway. Laura looked at Jason. "We need to isolate the frequency. If Carter's watching, he already knows we've found her." Jason's jaw hardened. Then he'll know what happens when we find him. A long minute passed. The ticking slowed. Irregular now, fading and returning like a heartbeat skipping. Emily's eyelids fluttered, exhaustion overtaking fear. Laura approached carefully again, stopping just short of Shadow's reach. She's fading. If that thing shuts down, I need to get her on a stretcher immediately. Jason nodded, glancing at the radio. EOD's 2 minutes out. Hold until they clear it. Emily's voice broke the silence. Will it hurt when they take it out? Jason forced a small smile. No, kiddo, it's going to be like removing a bad dream. She nodded faintly. Shadow won't leave me, right? Not a chance, he said. The ticking spiked again, fast, frantic, uneven. Lights on Laura's scanner flared red. Shadow barked wildly, lunging forward, forcing Jason to pull him back. Laura dropped to her knees, trying to shield Emily with her body. But before panic could overtake reason, the sound stopped. Just stopped. Silence filled the restroom so completely that Jason could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Shadow whined softly, ears flattening. Laura checked the scanner once more. The lights flickered, then stabilized. It's powering down, she said quietly. No detonation signature, no surge, just off. Jason exhaled hard, tension draining from his muscles. Then it was never meant to explode. Laura shook her head. No, it was meant to control. Outside, the ambulance lights bathed the fog in crimson waves. Jason stood, wiped his forehead, and looked toward the mist-covered highway. Somewhere beyond that darkness, Mr. Carter was watching or listening, and he had just lost control of his weapon. He turned back to Emily, who now clung to Shadow like a lifeline, her small body shaking less with every breath. The dog sat perfectly still, chest rising slow and steady, eyes locked on her face. Laura prepared the stretcher, giving Jason a nod. She's stable for now. Let's move her. Jason lifted Emily gently, careful not to press against the strange weight beneath the blanket. She tucked her face against his shoulder, whispering something he almost didn't hear. It's quiet now. He smiled faintly. Yeah, that's because you're safe. As they exited the building, the fog thinned just enough to reveal the first light of dawn spreading across the horizon. The night had broken, but the mystery hadn't. Inside the ambulance, Shadow settled beside the stretcher, eyes half closed, ears still twitching for danger. Laura strapped the scanner beside Emily and secured her IV. Jason stepped back, watching through the open doors as the medics prepared to leave. The sound of the machine had ended, but its echo lingered inside his chest. He turned once toward the camera mounted on the cruiser's dash, voice steady yet charged with disbelief. If you're holding your breath, he said quietly, make sure to like this video. These moments are unbelievable. The doors closed, the engine roared, and the convoy sped into the mist, carrying a little girl, a loyal dog, and a secret that had only just begun to unravel. The first streaks of dawn cut through the fog, turning the mist from silver to pale blue. Jason barely had time to process the radio call before one of the officers shouted from outside the ambulance, "We've got movement, north perimeter." The words sliced through the still air. He looked at Laura, who was securing Emily's stretcher. "Stay with her," he ordered. "Lock the doors." Shadow's head snapped up at the same moment. His ears twitched once, and then he growled. A deep, primal sound that came from somewhere ancient inside him. Jason didn't even have to command. "Find him," he said, unclipping the leash. Shadow leapt from the open door, paws hitting gravel hard. He lowered his nose, nostrils flaring as he caught the scent trail still warm on the wind. Oil, sweat, and something sour, like old metal. Jason followed, sprinting after him. The rest fell away behind them, red and blue lights dissolving into fog. The German shepherd cut toward the tree line, tail stiff, moving fast and silent. Branches snapped under Jason's boots as he pushed through the underbrush. The forest was dense, the kind that swallowed sound. Only shadows, low panting, and the crunch of dry leaves marked their path. Ahead, a figure stumbled through the fog, half hidden by trees. Mr. Carter. The man's greasy jacket flapped as he ran, one hand gripping a small metallic case. Jason's adrenaline spiked. "Police! Stop where you are." The man didn't stop. He darted deeper into the woods, boots sinking into mud, breath ragged. Shadow barked once, the sharp echo cutting through the mist like a flare. Jason pressed harder. Every muscle in his legs screamed, but the fury in his chest drowned out the pain. Carter's foot snagged on a root, and he tumbled forward, rolling into a patch of leaves. The case flew from his hand, landing several feet away. He scrambled toward it, but Shadow was faster. The dog lunged, tackling him sideways with a powerful shove that sent both crashing into the dirt. Jason closed the distance in seconds, pistol raised. "Hands where I can see them!" Carter wheezed, mud streaking his face. "You don't understand," he spat. "You weren't supposed to find her yet." Jason kicked the metallic case further away, keeping his weapon steady. "On your stomach now!" But Carter's eyes darted toward the case, wild with desperation. "It's not what you think. It's unfinished." He lunged again. Shadow barked furiously and clamped down on his jacket sleeve, dragging him back. Jason fired once into the air, the sound cracking through the woods. "You move again, and I let him finish it." Carter froze, breathing hard, eyes wide with hate. Jason reached for his radio. "Suspect detained. We have visuals on the secondary device. Requesting containment." The distant voices of approaching officers echoed through the trees. Carter's breathing turned erratic. "You're making it worse," he hissed. "You don't even know what you're touching." Jason knelt, grabbing his wrists and cuffing them. "Then you can tell us all about it after she's safe." Shadow growled again, tugging Jason's attention to the metallic case. The faintest clicking noise came from within it. Steady, deliberate, familiar. Jason felt his stomach twist. The same sound from Emily's stomach. He opened his flashlight and crouched beside it. The metal was dented, with edges smeared with grease and something darker. He hesitated, then flipped the latch. Inside were rows of small capsules, neatly arranged in foam, each about the size of a thumb. Tiny LED lights blinked red and green across their surfaces. Some were labeled with serial numbers. Others had etched initials, EM, RC, JT, childlike handwriting, carved crudely with something sharp. Jason's throat went dry. "How many kids?" Carter laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You think she's the only one?" "She's just the first who called for help." Jason slammed the lid shut, rage flaring so fast it burnt through his control. He shoved Carter against a tree. "You used her like a test subject." Carter smiled, blood mixing with mud on his teeth. "She was built for something greater. I was saving her." "Saving?" Jason's voice was a snarl. "You strapped a device inside a 7-year-old." Carter twisted his head, eyes glinting with manic pride. "It wasn't supposed to hurt her. It's a prototype, symbiotic hardware. I told her she'd never be alone again." Jason's hands shook with disgust. He wanted to hit him to end it, but Shadow barked once, sharp and grounding, pulling him back. He took a breath, forcing his anger down. "You're done talking." Officers burst through the trees behind him, weapons drawn. "Got him?" "Yeah," Jason said, stepping aside. "Bag the case. EOD's on standby." Two agents moved in, collecting the metallic box with cautious precision. One of them, a younger officer named Grant, whistled under his breath as he looked inside. "What the hell are these?" "Evidence," Jason said grimly. "Each one's a crime." Carter started laughing again, louder now, almost joyous. "You think you've stopped it? The system's already active. You can't shut it down." Jason turned away, sick of his voice. "Get him out of my sight." As they dragged him toward the patrol cars waiting beyond the tree line, Jason crouched beside Shadow, scratching behind the dog's ear. The shepherd's body trembled with leftover adrenaline, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the shadows. "Good work, boy," Jason murmured. "You saved her." A faint beeping sound made him glance down. One of the techs held up a capsule with a blinking light. "Detecting weak signal transmission," the man said. "Looks like a low-range tracking beacon. Could have been pinging coordinates to a receiver." Jason's jaw clenched. He was watching her every second. "Maybe worse," the tech added quietly. "These could carry sensors, biofeedback, data collection. Hard to say without lab work." Jason stood, staring toward the fogged edge of the woods where dawn was finally breaking. The first rays of sunlight sliced through the mist, catching the edges of the discarded leaves. "Get every single piece of that filth for evidence. I want the lab on it before noon." Shadow shifted beside him, nose twitching at the air. The scent of Carter was fading, replaced by the sterile smell of metal and dirt. Jason knelt again, resting a hand on the dog's back. The warmth under his palm anchored him against the rising fury. "Let's go check on Emily," he said softly. As they stepped out of the woods, the scene by the ambulance looked calmer. Laura stood near the door, radio in hand, watching the line of officers emerge from the fog with the captured man in tow. Emily was awake now, eyes following the movement outside. When she saw Jason and Shadow appear, she managed a fragile smile. Jason approached the ambulance window. "It's over," he said gently. "He can't hurt you anymore." Her small hand reached toward the glass. Shadow pressed his nose to the same spot from the other side, fogging it with his breath. The faint reflection of dawn glimmered in her green eyes. Jason turned away. Exhaustion and anger tangled inside him. He could still hear Carter's voice echoing in his head. "You weren't supposed to find her yet." He looked back at the woods, the capsules, and the blinking lights fading one by one as they were shut down. Justice would come, but not fast enough to erase what that little girl had lived through. As the convoy prepared to move out, Jason exhaled hard, rubbing his temples. "Shadow," he said quietly, "sometimes I think the real monsters don't hide under beds." The dog's ears flicked, eyes following Carter's vehicle disappearing into the distance. The sound of the forest returned slowly, birds, rustling leaves, and the hum of engines far away. Jason glanced once more at the ambulance, at Emily resting with Shadow's blanket covering her. The light finally broke through the fog, full and golden, wrapping the scene in fragile calm. Suspense lingered like smoke, but justice had its first breath. And somewhere deep in the mist, the faint metallic ticking finally faded into silence. The fog began to lift, revealing the outlines of patrol cars lined along the edge of the wooded rest stop. Morning sunlight spilt through the mist like gold through glass, touching everything. The cruiser roofs, the stretchers, and the trembling figure of Emily wrapped in a thermal blanket. The nightmare that had held the night was finally breaking apart, though its echo still lingered in every breath, every heartbeat. Jason stood beside his cruiser, mud streaking his uniform, adrenaline still humming beneath his skin. A few yards away, Mr. Carter sat cuffed in the back of a patrol car, his head bowed, face streaked with dirt and cold sweat. The laughter that had once filled the woods had vanished, replaced by silence and the steady rhythm of law enforcement doing what they did best: collecting evidence, documenting the horror one photograph at a time. Officers moved around carefully sealed containers, each filled with capsules, wires, and pieces of metallic devices now tagged with bright yellow markers. Shadow sat obediently near the evidence table, chest rising and falling in calm precision. His muzzle was speckled with dirt, fur matted from the chase, but his eyes never wavered from Jason. When one of the younger officers crouched and patted his shoulder, Shadow tilted his head slightly, a small wag of his tail betraying pride without arrogance. Jason smiled faintly at the gesture. "Good job, partner," he murmured. The words were quiet, but full of weight. Behind them, Laura Diaz walked out of the ambulance, clipboard in hand. Her gloves were streaked with dust, but her calm presence hadn't cracked once through the ordeal. She approached Jason, voice low. "She's stable," she said. "Physically, she'll be fine. Emotionally." She trailed off, eyes flicking toward the small shape sitting inside the vehicle. Emily was awake now, a pale face framed by a mess of blonde hair, clutching a cup of warm cocoa someone had found for her. The cup trembled slightly in her hands. When she spotted Shadow, her lips curved in the faintest, fragile smile. She tapped the window softly, and the dog turned immediately, ears pricking. Jason opened the door, and Shadow stepped closer, resting his paws gently on the bumper. Emily reached out, fingertips brushing his fur. "He didn't let me be alone," she whispered, voice barely audible. Jason crouched beside her. "That's right, he stayed because that's what heroes do." She looked up at him, green eyes still cloudy with confusion and fear. "Am I safe now?" Jason nodded, steady and certain. "You're safe. We won't let anyone hurt you again." Outside, the scene had shifted from chaos to order. Evidence technicians cataloged the contraband, carefully sealing the metallic capsules in reinforced containers. One of them called out, "These devices are transmitting small frequency bursts. Looks like local tracking or feedback loops." Another replied, "Carter had schematics stored in his van. Looks like he was building more." Jason's jaw tightened. The reality was worse than they'd guessed. He turned toward the patrol car where Carter sat. The man stared through the glass, expression vacant, muttering something under his breath that no one could hear. For the first time, Jason didn't feel rage, just disbelief at the coldness of a mind that could do this to a child. Sarah's voice crackled through the radio. "Unit 12, confirmation from lab. Devices are non-lethal but contain experimental AI sensors. He may have been recording bioresponses. We're sending the tech division to secure everything." Jason exhaled slowly. "Copy that." He looked down at Shadow again. The dog had settled beside Emily's door, refusing to leave. Jason rubbed behind his ear, voice quiet. "He found her when we had nothing but fog. He led me through that forest like he could see the truth before any of us." Laura smiled softly. "He's earned more than a medal." "Yeah," Jason said, "but he'd trade every one for a treat and a nap." The humor broke the tension just enough for the moment to breathe. For the first time in hours, a few of the officers chuckled. The world began to feel human again. Emily's breathing steadied. She took another sip from her cup, her tiny shoulders relaxing against the blanket. "Can I see the sky?" she asked. Laura looked to Jason, who nodded. They helped her step out of the ambulance. The morning sun washed over her face, and she blinked up, squinting as if she hadn't seen daylight in years. The forest rustled quietly. A single bird called from the trees. Shadow stayed close, head brushing her elbow every time she swayed. She reached down and rested her small hand on his head. "He's soft," she said simply. Jason felt something uncoil in his chest, a knot that had been there since the call came in. "That's because he's made of good," he said. Nearby, an officer shut the evidence case and snapped a seal over it. "All secured," he called. "Chain of custody confirmed." Jason nodded, then turned back toward the patrol car. Carter looked up as Jason approached, his lips curling into a bitter smirk. "You think you've stopped me?" he muttered through the half-open window. Jason leaned down, eyes hard. "No," he said. "I think she stopped you." Carter's smirk faltered. Jason straightened and signaled for transport to move. The door slammed, and the convoy rolled away down the quiet highway, dust swirling in its wake. Silence returned to the rest stop, just wind, birds, and the hum of engines fading into the distance. Jason walked back to the ambulance where Laura was wrapping up her notes. "She'll need observation and trauma counseling," she said, "but she's strong. Kids like her, they find a way through." Jason nodded. "She's not alone anymore." He crouched beside Shadow again, patting the dog's neck. "You hear that, partner? Mission complete." Shadow tilted his head, as if proud, and wagged his tail once before sitting perfectly still beside Emily, guard mode still active even in calm. The girl leaned against him, exhaustion overtaking fear. Within minutes, she drifted off to sleep, her tiny fingers still tangled in his fur. Jason looked out across the highway, the rising sun reflecting in his eyes. The world felt different now. Quieter, but heavier, carrying the weight of what they'd found and what could have been. He knew there'd be more reports, more investigations, more sleepless nights. But for this moment there was peace. Laura packed her gear, stepping back to watch the unlikely pair. The K-9 hero, standing sentinel beside the sleeping child. "You know," she said softly, "people are going to talk about this one for a long time." Jason smiled faintly. "Good. Let them. Maybe it'll remind someone why we do this." As the team began to clear the scene, Jason turned once toward the camera on the dash of his cruiser. His voice dropped to a low, steady tone meant for the people who would one day hear this story. "Share this story if you believe heroes can come in 4 paws and 2 feet, he said. The fog finally burnt away completely, leaving behind only sunlight, footprints, and a sense of fragile justice. Shadow stretched once, then lay down beside the ambulance tire, head resting between his paws. Emily slept soundly, safe at last, the rhythmic hum of the highway replacing the ticking that had haunted the night. For the first time since the call began, everyone breathed easy, though none of them would ever forget the sound that started it all. The afternoon light spilt softly through the open windows of the county shelter as the convoy rolled in. It wasn't the harsh fluorescent brightness of hospitals or the sharp pulse of red and blue lights anymore. It was warm, gentle rays of sunlight breaking through drifting clouds. Jason stepped out of the cruiser first, his eyes finding Emily instantly. The little girl sat wrapped in a thick wool blanket in the back of the ambulance. Shadow curled protectively at her feet. His tail thumped once when he saw Jason, then again when Emily whispered his name. A woman in her early 40s approached from the shelter entrance. Her dark hair was tied neatly behind her head, glasses resting on her nose, and kindness already written across her face. Grace Montgomery, she said, extending a hand to Jason. Child Services. Her voice carried that calm warmth reserved for people who had seen broken things before and learned how to hold them without making them worse. Jason nodded and stepped aside as Grace knelt beside Emily. "Hi, sweetheart," she said gently. "I'm Miss Grace. You're safe now, okay? You've had a really hard night, but everything scary is over." Emily hesitated, clutching the edge of the blanket. Shadow's head rested against her knee, eyes half closed but alert. Grace smiled. "That's a beautiful dog," she said softly. "Did he help you?" Emily's small voice broke through the quiet. "He didn't leave me even when I was scared." Grace touched her shoulder lightly. "That means he's your hero, doesn't it?" Jason stood back, watching the exchange. The tension that had wrapped around his chest for hours began to loosen, replaced by something quieter, heavier, a mix of exhaustion and relief. He'd seen too many scenes end in tragedy, too many nights that didn't deliver this kind of peace. But seeing Emily's small hand move from the blanket to rest on Shadow's fur, watching her tiny fingers curl into trust again, it reminded him why the job mattered. Laura stepped beside him, handing over a report clipboard. "Medically, she's cleared for transfer. The scans showed no damage. Whatever that man did, we stopped it in time." Jason nodded. "Good work, Laura." She exhaled softly. "I just wish stopping one monster stopped them all." Grace rose, smoothing her jacket. "We'll take her to the temporary residence for the night. Warm bed, quiet space, familiar things. I'll stay with her until she sleeps." Jason crouched next to Emily one last time. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You remember what I told you back there about brave people?" Emily looked up at him, her eyes clearer now. "You said brave people don't always feel brave. They just keep trying." He smiled. "That's right, and that's you." She smiled faintly, a hint of pride peeking through the fear. "And Shadow, too." Jason laughed quietly, especially Shadow. The dog gave a single soft bark as if agreeing, then licked her hand, drawing the first real giggle from her since the nightmare began. Grace wrapped the blanket tighter around Emily's shoulders and guided her toward the shelter doors. "Let's get you inside," she murmured. "There's hot soup waiting." As they walked, Emily turned once more to look back at Jason and Shadow. "Will I see him again?" she asked. Jason hesitated, then nodded. "You'll see both of us, promise." She smiled and disappeared inside. The courtyard grew still again. The last evidence teams packed up the crates, sealing away the metallic remains of Carter's twisted invention. The hum of engines faded into the distance. Jason leaned against the cruiser, eyes on the horizon where pale sunlight broke across the hills. Shadow lay at his feet, chin resting on his paws, eyes tracking the door where Emily had gone. "You did good," Jason said, rubbing his head gently. "Real good." Shadow's tail swept across the ground once in answer. Inside the shelter, Grace helped Emily onto a small couch near the heater. The room smelt faintly of cocoa and clean linen. A bookshelf full of toys lined one wall. Grace handed her a stuffed bear, which Emily took gingerly. "You can keep that one," she said. "He's a good listener." Emily hugged it close. Her eyelids drooped, the weight of exhaustion heavier than fear now. Grace brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You're safe," she whispered. "No more running, no more hiding, just rest." Outside, Jason watched the sky shift from gray to pale gold. Laura stepped out beside him, her arms folded. "You think she'll be okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, she's got people now." The ambulance driver approached with a clipboard. "We're done here, officer. All evidence has been logged. The media's already asking questions." Jason sighed. "Let the department handle the press. For now, this isn't a story. It's a life." The driver nodded and left. The quiet stretched again, interrupted only by the distant sound of laughter from inside the shelter. Small, tentative, but real. Jason smiled faintly. "That's the sound we fight for," he said. Laura followed his gaze, her voice soft. "Do you ever wonder if she'll remember any of this?" "Maybe," Jason said. "But maybe she'll remember the good parts. The people who showed up, the dog who stayed, the fact that even the worst night can end with the sun rising." Grace reappeared in the doorway, giving Jason a small nod. "She's asleep," she said. "Out cold." Shadow's name was the last thing she said before drifting off. Jason smiled, glancing down at his partner. "Figures." Grace looked toward the horizon. "She'll need counseling and care, but she's resilient. Some kids just find light no matter how dark it gets." "Yeah," Jason agreed. "She's tougher than most adults I know." Grace tilted her head. "Do you ever take a moment to breathe after all this?" He chuckled tiredly. "Sometimes. Today might be one of those times." Shadow rose slowly, stretching his legs, then pressed against Jason's side, the weight grounding him in silence. The two stood there as the last of the fog melted away, leaving only sunlight and the faint hum of morning traffic on the highway. Grace started toward her car, but paused. "You should know. Emily told me she wants to be a police officer someday. Said she wants to help other kids not be scared." Jason looked back at her, surprised, then smiled. "Then I guess we did something right." Grace nodded once, then drove off. Jason crouched beside Shadow again, giving him one last scratch behind the ear. "You hear that, partner? You made a cop out of her already." Shadow leaned into his touch, eyes closing. For a moment everything was quiet. No sirens, no shouting, no ticking devices. Just peace. Jason straightened, looked toward the shelter door one more time, then started toward the cruiser. He paused halfway, glanced at the dash camera, and with a tired but hopeful smile, said softly, "Remember, if you think courage exists in the smallest voices, show it by subscribing." The camera light blinked once, recording the final words of a night that had changed them all. Behind him, Shadow followed, loyal as ever, the sound of his paws steady against the asphalt. And inside the shelter, wrapped in warmth and the steady rhythm of safety, Emily slept, her nightmares finally giving way to dreams of wide skies, gentle voices, and a dog who never left her side. When people remember what happened at that lonely rest stop off the highway, they will not start with the sirens or the flashing lights. They will start with a whisper, a tiny voice on a 911 line, shaking as it said, "Please help. Something is moving inside me." In that instant, before anyone saw her face or knew her name, a 7-year-old girl chose to trust a stranger on the other end of a phone instead of the fear trying to swallow her. That decision set everything in motion. The dispatcher who refused to treat it as a prank, the officer who hit the gas without hesitation, and the German shepherd who felt danger in the air before his handler even finished hearing the call. Emily sat alone on cold tiles, knees drawn to her chest, pink dress stained from the floor, green eyes wide with terror, as invisible gears ticked and twisted inside the trap her stepfather had wrapped around her small body. Every second that passed could have been one where she stayed quiet or decided that no one would come. Instead, she spoke. She described the broken sign, the mist over the lot, the way it hurt when the device pulsed against her ribs. On the other end, Sarah stayed calm and steady, pinned down the location, kept the girl breathing, and refused to let her own voice crack. Jason and Shadow tore through that fog-covered highway like it was the only road that still mattered. At the rest stop, they moved past blinking lights and sleeping trucks into a flickering restroom where fear smelled like bleach and metal. Shadow growled before any machine gave a reading, sensing wrongness wrapped in cloth. Jason saw more than a bulge under a dress. He saw the outline of a man's cruelty, sharp and unnatural, ticking like a tiny steel heart that never should have been near a child. While officers closed in around the perimeter and backup rushed closer, the bond between a frightened girl and a working dog turned into the anchor holding the whole scene together. When paramedic Laura arrived with her scanner and quiet focus, science confirmed what instinct already knew. This was not sickness, not a random illness, but a non-biological device hiding where innocence should have been left untouched. The mechanical pulses grew louder, the clicking faster, as if the hardware itself hated being discovered. Shadow paced, snarled, then settled only when Emily's fingers sank into his fur. In her world, where adults had lied and twisted truth into something cruel, that dog became the one presence she could actually trust. His steady breathing, his solid weight against her legs, reminded her that not everything that came near her body wanted to hurt it. While medics stabilized Emily, the hunt for Mr. Carter pushed into the trees. Shadow led the chase, nose to the earth. Following the invisible trail of oil, sweat, and fear through branches and wet soil, Jason ran behind him, lungs burning, anger thrumming with every stride. When they found the man stumbling through the woods, clutching his metal case, it was not some dramatic movie stunt that stopped him, but a trained dog driving him into the dirt, and a weary officer who still believed children were worth every bruise and breath. The opened case revealed rows of capsules and devices, a twisted collection of experiments that turned human trust into a lab for one damaged mind. That was the turning point. From there, the story shifted from terror toward accountability. Officers documented every piece of contraband, sealed and labeled it, and sent it to teams who would pull apart every wire and chip. The law took Carter away in cuffs, his muttered excuses meaningless against the image of a little girl shivering in a blanket. Emily did not see his final ride from the scene. She was too busy gripping Shadow's neck, feeling the engine of the ambulance rumble beneath her as the highway rolled past. For the first time in hours, the ticking near her ribs was gone, replaced by a steady human rhythm, the sound of people who showed up because one frightened child asked for help. Later that day, warm shelter walls echoed with quiet laughter as Emily finally slept peacefully again there tonight. The heroism in this story does not belong to one person alone. It lives in small choices: a dispatcher refusing to hang up, an officer trusting his partner's growl, a medic standing her ground in front of something no textbook fully prepared her for, a social worker who understands that healing is not measured in paperwork, but in quiet nights without nightmares. Most of all, it lives in Emily herself. In the moment, she lifted a phone with shaking fingers and decided that her pain deserved to be heard. She walked through horror and came out the other side still capable of hugging a dog, still willing to believe that there are adults who mean what they say. If you have followed every second of this rescue, feeling your chest tighten when the ticking grew louder, and your shoulders relax when the cuffs finally clicked shut, then you already know why stories like this matter. They remind us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it sounds like a whisper saying, "Please help," from a bathroom floor. They remind us that heroes can walk on 2 feet or 4 paws, can wear uniforms or simple jackets, can hold radios, stethoscopes, or stuffed animals. They challenge each of us to ask what kind of person we want to be, if we ever hear a small voice like Emily's in our own lives. So, if this night pulled at something inside you, if you found yourself holding your breath when Shadow disappeared into the fog, or blinking away tears when Emily finally smiled again, do not just move on and forget it. Like this video so more people see what quiet bravery looks like. Subscribe so you never miss the next real feeling story of survival and justice. Comment which country or city you are watching from, so Emily's courage and Shadow's loyalty can be honored across the map. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that even in a world marked by people like Carter, there are still teams who show up in the dark and refuse to back down. And when the credits roll in your mind, picture one last scene: the rural highway at sunset, sky painted orange and purple as trucks hum past, and the once frightening rest stop now sits in peaceful silence. On a small hill nearby, Emily stands in a clean jacket, Shadow pressed against her side, his leash loose in her hand. She laughs at something Jason says, her face lit by fading light instead of flickering bathroom bulbs. The view pulls back slowly, the sound of the wind and distant engines blending into gentle music. She is safe. He is beside her. The darkness did not win. Stay tuned, because the next story will shock you even more. But tonight, this one finally gets the ending it fought for.